Robin Hood is a 1973 animated Disney film that has entertained and inspired many people over the course of half a century. Millions of people around the globe will never look at foxes the same way ever again. Or girls. Or men. And it certainly has some good animation in it, even if some of it was taken from other Disney films. There's plenty of bouncy fun to be had looking at these characters doing their thing on the screen, and I regularly find myself interested in figuring out how it all works, in terms of design and movement. By the way, hi, welcome to Foxy Box. I'm your fox and this is my box. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down a shot near the beginning of the film, where Robin is happily bobbing along to the opening number, Oodalolly. This shot is a very good example of that classic Disney animation magic. Robin is happy and carefree even though he's being pursued by archer wolves. One thing I would like to bring up is that the rough pencil test of this shot is available online, though when I was comparing this shot to the final version that appears in the film, I noticed that Robin's legs were fully animated, even though they end up being almost completely cropped out in the actual movie. How unfortunate. Now, I could use this as reference for my analysis, but I already sort of committed to breaking down the movie version, and I guess I might as well just continue with that. It has more colors, I guess, but I digress. So first I'll be tracing the head movement. One thing I tend to notice about really good 2D animation is that it is, ironically enough, very three-dimensional. Robin's head in this instance is not only bobbing up and down, but pivoting to the right before turning to the side at the end. The reason the head feels bouncy is because as Robin moves down, the head points up, and right as he comes back up, it points down, as if his head was being dramatically affected by air resistance or something. Notice that Robin's head will start to point down faster than it starts pointing up. This makes for a more lively, snappy motion. I guess it's supposed to convey laughter, since the lyric here is laughing back and forth at what the other end has to say. But it also looks like he's just vibing more than anything else. It makes me wish I was happy enough to bob my head like this. One thing that's worth bringing up as a general rule of thumb is that animated characters, particularly older ones, are a lot floppier than real people. If your character isn't flopping around, is it even really animation? Take advantage of the medium, people! Next up is Robin's right arm, which swings back and forth in a loose, carefree manner. The arm starts to bend as it reaches its peak, before straightening out as it moves down. It even seems to bend backward at the apex of the second swing. His left arm couldn't be fully traced since it's out of view for bits of the shot, but it has essentially the same motion, just in the other direction. Another thing that's worth mentioning, and is something that is immediately apparent as a result of this piece-by-piece breakdown of the shot, is the principle of secondary action, where multiple parts of the subject have their own motion, as opposed to everything moving in the same way at the same time. When you're working in terms of keyframes, it can be hard to keep track of everything, particularly when everything is on the same layer. When I traced the motion of these individual parts, I focused on the motion of the head first, making a new keyframe whenever it changed direction. But for the rest of the parts, I drew in new keyframes even when the motion of that part hadn't necessarily changed. I just did that for the sake of consistency more than anything else, even though each part is on its own layer. If I was doing this with pencil and paper, I don't know if I would want to get out a whole new stack of paper for each body part, so I wanted everything to line up. However, I think it does help to look at each part separately, which is why I broke down the shot this way to begin with. Generally, each piece of the action should remain consistent with itself and should work off of the other pieces, like how the head moves down when the arms are in the middle of their swing, and everything generally has a circular motion to it, as will become evident when I start tracing the movement of the torso. Now, if this is overwhelming, I'm breaking down the work of animation gods. Once I finished breaking this shot down, one thing became evidently clear. I'm not worthy, none of us are worthy, but breaking down shots like these can still help you improve your work, and you can still be a skilled animator, even if you're not one of the all-time greats. Anyway, Robin's chest is next. One thing that was crucial to understanding the movement of the torso was the collar on the belt, which act as an indicator of where the front of the torso and the pelvis are. There's actually a twisting side-to-side motion happening here as he's walking, which adds a lot of dimension and personality to the action. At the apex of the second swing, his chest completely rotates to the side as he really starts to move his arms up for the climax of the stride, before finally coming to a stop. It's always important to recognize the importance of three-dimensionality in 2D animation, which in this particular case is only really made evident by the existence of one curved line. Next we have the tufts of fur on the side of Robin's head, which is the first thing on our color-coded list of fox parts that isn't being controlled by any form of musculature. They're just little fluffy bits that move completely according to physics. I mentioned earlier how my drawings become a lot more loose the longer I've been animating. These tufts are just one scribbled stroke. I almost don't need to speed this part up because I was able to work so fast here. I suppose even when I'm tracing, there's still little things like this that indicate some level of animation experience. There's a huge difference between tracing to pass off work as your own versus tracing for the sake of personal education. Anyway, like the head, the fluffy side bits move up as Robin moves down, and immediately change direction as he moves up, at a faster rate than when he was moving down, which is the result of a drastic change in momentum as Robin starts to rise upwards. This is not only secondary action but also follow-through, as the motion of the fur follows through with its current action even after the rest of the body has changed direction. After this, I just drew everything else in the same layer. I went over the tail, the ears, and the small bit of leg that shows up at the bottom. The ears have the same sort of floppy follow-through action that the fur does, but since they point out in a specific direction relative to the head, it's not just a matter of moving up and down. For example, when the head is moving towards the bottom right, the ears simply stick straight out, since the only direction they could be pointing is outwards from the head, since that's the direction of the momentum. Also, the ears are rotating in 3D space just like everything else, as evidenced by the fact that in one of the keyframes, the inner ear is not visible, since it's turned away from the viewer. It's little things like this that add to the feeling of dimension and physicality, and it's this feeling of realness that really adds believability to the character. And once we add it all together, we have a bouncy, happy fox, boiled down to the basic parts. If I were the one responsible for this shot, it would simply be a matter of adding on to this basic framework. I didn't include the hat because I wanted to focus exclusively on the body mechanics. But it's worth noting that the hat also has dimension, and the feather attached to it also has its own form of follow-through floppiness. Everything about this character, specifically in this shot, is very floppy. And that's pretty much the shot broken down into its underlying parts. Hopefully this was helpful to you. I might do more videos like this since I don't have to work quite so hard on the visual front, but I will definitely consider making actual animation tutorials where I draw my own stuff. I have at least one other vaguely animation-related tutorial on my other channel, where I use EbSynth to add shading and lighting to pre-existing animation, but I would like to make more original tutorial-style content in the future. Also on my other channel, I have a video where I draw a bunch of fox girls, which is completely original, so you know I'm not completely leeching off of other people. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, thank you to my supporters on Patreon, and remember to stay cute!